take off my Okay. I am calling this meeting of the Cobb Area Council to order. It is now 6:30. And we can have a roll call.
Yeah.
Miss Darlene?
Kathy McCarthy.
Here.
Chris Nettles.
Here.
Darlene Warner, I am here. Jake Strickler, absent.
Called in absent.
Joe Schneider, absent. And Paul Duncan.
Here.
Okay.
Right, let's stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Our agenda was posted and has been posted since Monday. Thank you, Chris, for helping that out. And
Yes.
thank you, Darlene, for emailing it to everybody.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Motion to approve the agenda?
Motion
Second.
by Paul Duncan, seconded by Chris Nettles. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay. And we have our minutes from February. Hopefully you got a chance to look through those while you were waiting for us to start. Motion by Mary,
Mary?
Second.
second by Paul. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? And we have minutes. And it is now time for short announcements. Short announcements. Anything for the good of the community.
Hi, I'm Robert Stark, President of the Mountain Lions. I'd like to thank everyone involved in the crab feed and the sponsors. It was a very successful event and went off without a hitch. We are hoping to continue it, but with the price of crab being what it is, it was pretty restricted, $6,600 for the crab for 125 people.
Wow.
You buy 600 pounds, you get 300 cleaned, cracked, and cut in half. So anyway, and just a note, on February 5th, we'll be stuffing eggs. April. I keep thinking February. I think I do that on purpose. Just, get attention at any cost. April 5th, we're stuffing eggs. April 19th at the Belmont Pines will be the Easter egg hunt. There will be 2,000 eggs. It will begin at 12 o'clock sharp because people come there at quarter after 12:30 and they're outraged that the last year's 1,600 eggs were gone in 7.5 minutes. So you can't just wander into an Easter egg hunt. So, buyer beware, picker-upper beware that if you don't want your kids disappointed, we keep some in our pockets for such, but you can only do so much. It's 12 o'clock sharp. We will be having hot dogs and hamburgers available with the profit from such being given to the Mountain Lions, and then the restaurant itself will be open for their lunch menu. Ashley was going to be here. And since she's not, I thought I would mention it. There will be food available, and either hot dogs and hamburgers or the regular lunch menu from there. So that's April 19th, and that's the day, Easter Sunday. So.
Day before?
Well, whatever Easter is, but our event is on the 19th, so.
All right.
And it's always been a good event. It's a fun event. It always tugs at your heart to see the kids going out there. And but we just stress, don't shortchange your kids by not being there on time. When we say go, they're gone, and it's bedlam for between 7 and 12 minutes. And then they're like vacuum cleaners out there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lions Club. Any other short announcements? Okay, how about the 3-minute public or board comment on a non-agenda item? Any of those out there? All right, we have one person approaching the microphone.
Hello, I'm Tom Slade. I just put this together at the last minute, something I read today that I just would make some comments on things I've seen before. Lake County community leaders engage in the science of positive. Well, I've seen this kind of stuff before. I don't know exactly what this is, but there's so much of this whole idea of positive thinking that, but it thinks to me, it pressures people to not be negative. You wouldn't want to disagree with anybody because you're being negative. And I know Marymount had a showcase on happiness that I think they sponsored, but they were involved in it. And I went to that for a little while until they had breakout tables. Now, I don't know if these are breakout tables or not, but I left. I don't do breakout tables. And but anyway, they had a showcase on happiness, and that was before they packed up and left in the middle of the night. There might be a clue there. But anyway, I see this as I'd like to have more training in critical thinking, because to me it seems like could end up being no whining, no finger pointing, and no critical thinking. So I was been pretty quick. Well, then there's a few books too called Barbara Ehrenreich cited how the relentless promotion of positive thinking has undermined America, and willful blindness, why we ignore the obvious at our peril. And so there's a lot to be said for, taking a look at, just question this, that's all, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Any other comments? Okay. Then we will move on to our supervisor's comments. Jessica Peiska.
Hello, everyone, and Dad. So the last meeting, I was getting ready to go on my trip to DC, so I'll just give a little report out on that. It was a wild time. It's a wild time right now. And the first day, I went early so that I could do a Hill delegation Senate visits with my colleagues from Nevada County and Napa County to talk about insurance, because we've been working together for over a year now on policy recommendations for the state, and the federal government really needs to play a role in this. So we were really pushing with those Senate banking staff committee members on the minority and the majority side. Really encouraging them to open up hearings again and to understand that they do have a role, especially because we are using federal dollars here to mitigate risks and increase insurability, and then the insurers increase the rates and kind of collect profit on that. So who knows how well they hurt us, so we'll keep pushing that. We also, the task force that I'm on for FEMA reform met with White House staffers, and we talked about, first of all, please don't dismantle FEMA, which that message came loud and clear from all of the members of the task force from all different, around the country, 18 different electeds. There's about 25 of us, so hopefully that was heard too. And then the last day is typically where we have our own Hill visits with our Lake County delegation and our federal lobbyists. So we brought the issues that we're dealing with here to Schiff and Padilla and Mike Thompson's office. So it was a good visit. It's really important that we have a presence there. We haven't been doing it for very long, and having the federal lobbyists this year in place makes it that much more powerful. The chaos in the federal government is affecting counties and local jurisdictions. And we, as things change sort of day by day, and with the passing of the continuing resolution last week, we're trying to figure out really all those ways that if federal resources are being frozen or clawed back or canceled altogether, what that looks like on the ground. So for example, we have about $25 million of awarded community wildfire defense grants, some with SSCRA, the clerk and the Resource Conservation District, that still appear to be frozen with the USDA. So I mean, we've all been working together for almost a decade to build the capacity, to build up the nonprofits, to build the Resource Conservation District, to develop the workforce, and to create a pipeline of grant funding that keeps all of this work going. And so all that's in jeopardy when they freeze and potentially cancel these funds, which were lawfully passed by the last Congress, in the Inflation Reduction Act. So this administration is trying to halt those funds. However, they opened up another round of that grant funding. So there's about 17 million that's been applied for another round. So we'll see how all that goes. It's really disappointing. And when I think about the progress that we've all made here together over the last decade, I just can't fathom going backwards. So the list of the lease terminations on DOJ's website is also pretty discouraging when you look at the amount of offices throughout California that are slated for closure potentially. And a lot of the work that I've been doing with Congressman Thompson's office and our federal lobbyists and our state advocates is, working on those leases and the workforce that also needs to be in place with those offices. There was a LA Times article that came out earlier this week that kind of highlighted a lot of those issues. The BLM field office in Ukiah has been on that list, but it looks like it was taken off after that article was posted. So the staff there had been telling me for the last week or so that they were not supposed to be on that termination list, but I kept telling them, but you're still on that list. So something happened in the dead of night, which is good because that field office covers 9 counties and 250,000 acres of federal lands in the central region of California. Unfortunately, the freezes stopped a lot of the really important fuels work that is supposed to happen this time of year. So that's disappointing and frustrating. And we're trying to figure out if there's other ways that potentially the Forest Service or CAL FIRE can help get some of those projects done before fire season starts. And then the most concerning termination and workforce reduction is with the National Weather Service and the Eureka office, which is where we get all of our data, which is how Chief Duncan and other chiefs around the county called for mutual aid to pre-position resources like they did last weekend for the Atmospheric River event and during fire season and red flag weather. Every day when there's weather, doesn't matter what time of year, if there's weather coming, we get data, and that's how we plan for the safety of our residents. And to have the workforce be contracted and the offices closed, you can imagine that puts a lot of us in direct danger. So Congressman Thompson's been working closely with Congressman Huffman because it's in his district to pursue that. And so those are just the things that I've been working on the last couple of weeks. that are pretty heavy. The good news for the continuing resolution is that the Older Americans Act was put back in. It was pulled out in the December resolution, which meant that we didn't have funding for the Area Agency on Aging, which supports the senior centers in our county and provides funding for Meals on Wheels. So we spent the last couple of months trying to figure out how we were going to stopgap that. Luckily, we didn't run out of money quite yet, and luckily it is in this CR. But we are still waiting to see how it all plays out because there's still quite a lot in the air. I'm very concerned that the SNAP seems to be the point of contention in reauthorizing the Farm Bill, but the Farm Bill was put in the continuing resolution. So these are all the federal programs that people don't really think about that support our community. We have a lot of people who really rely on these resources. And, you know, with the next conversations with budget reconciliation and potentially, you know, looking at reductions in safety net programs, that apply to over half of the people that live in Lake County. And then another conversation that I had last week with the California Secretary of Health and Human Services, we were talking about disaster response and immediate response and, you know, after a disaster long term, as we all know, there's a lot of, the state comes in and helps with a lot of things. But a lot of that help relies on federal safety net programs that could potentially be cut. So when we think about what a disaster response looks like without that, I asked her, what, if you are relying on so many of these federal pots of funding and they're just not there, then how do we respond to a disaster? And her answer was, we will just reprioritize. So if we think about how this is happening across the spectrum of the federal government, there's just no way the state is going to be able to backfill any of this. And everybody just really needs to understand that. So a lot of these things are still being talked about and being worked on. Some things have come to pass, some things haven't. So I just really encourage everyone to pay really close attention to what's going on. And if you are working on a grant that's been frozen, just let's stay in close contact, because that's where we can advocate within the channels that we have set up. I don't have a lot of good news other than it sounds like Glenn is going to come next month and talk about the roads, which is always happy to have that $5 million project rolling out here late spring and throughout the summer.
Thank you, Jessica.
Oh, one other thing. Congressman Thompson is having it was supposed to be coffee with the congressman, but the amount of people that want to go and see him tomorrow from 11 to 12 has increased, and so they've moved to Twin Pine so they can accommodate a large amount of people. And I encourage anybody that has time to go and talk with him, because he is fighting very hard. We talk all the time, and it's really important to support the leaders who are doing this work.
Is that the meeting that was going to be at the senior center? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question, but a comment. First, you mentioned Mike Thompson, and
I think you need to go to the microphone, Tom.
Good. Can you go to the microphone?
Microphone.
So we can hear you. Thank you.
Just before Thomas yells at you.
But, well, you mentioned Mike Thompson. It reminded me, as some of us know, that Brad Honorado passed. And I had first met him over 20 years, and I found him to be just so respectful and friendly and likable, so I really liked him. But the other thing is, I think it involved you, this whole idea, especially being in Washington, to get, because I don't think you mentioned this, to get the word out to these officials that we're making a lot of progress here as far as fuel load reduction and being ready for fires, and it's ongoing. And I think you're the one who's letting them know that. So maybe you comment on that.
Well, that's what I've been saying, is we have been doing the work, and we've been building up the capacity to do the work. And there's no way. So I was on a panel last week with two of my colleagues, one from Del Norte and one from Butte County, and we were having conversations about this, and they were both saying, well, maybe this just all needs to be privatized. And I said, well, there's really no way to monetize fuel reduction if you don't have timber sales, and we don't have timber. So the work that we are doing with the biomass pilot plan over the last year, we've the consultants that we've been working with have been doing an analysis of biomass throughout the county and what's available and what will be available kind of future, and what's sustainable and what types of businesses could use that biomass and, would work successfully here. And the results of that research is that we can grow some micro industries, but there is not enough to, say, stand up a big energy plant, or there's not enough for big industry and big projects, which means it's never going to fully be sustainable. So there's always going to have to be grant support for operations, because this is all falling under the Risk Reduction Authority and how we can manage biomass. So there's always going to be that piece. So right now we're doing the financial studies of which avenues of funding will be available year to year, and make those plans like 5 to 10 years to see how we can stand up those operations and grow those industries. And that's a lot of what the Inflation Reduction Act is about, is making these investments in communities so that businesses can be stood up, and so that they can get on their feet, and some of this can be privatized, but it can't be privatized simply by just cutting everything and hoping some business comes along. That's just never going to happen. And we also know that you've got to have this investment in communities to make them resilient, because if and when a big disaster happens and you lose a whole community, it costs 7 times the amount to rebuild it than it does for that $1 it could have taken to invest in resiliency.
Well, thank you again, Jessica, for being here. That's a nice segue to you, storm update.
Yes. And you just don't know, it's the box of chocolates with weather. So the Weather Service could either be completely on point or they could be way off. So I'm glad to see we did get a foot, but we did get snow, and things came around all right. On the CAL FIRE side, we'll be fully staffed as of March 31st. That's a real early date for us, but due to fire activity in Southern California and the need to have staff, we are pushing forward with all engines, all stations staffed as of March 31st. And then copter training will be likely begin in about 10 days. So should see them flying around the hill, hopefully getting their groundwork done, and then doing the air sign-offs. The air burner is working down with the carbonizer down in Middletown on 175. If you drive by it at night, it looks really cool. It's like a Roman candle out there. They've been doing great work. I don't think they're burning quite as much as they wanted to, so they've turned in an application to increase that and put a second carbonizer down there to work. They will be distributing biochar coming up, so we don't have a means of sign-up yet, but that is coming. We're meeting with them on Monday to try and get a sign-up for folks that want to get biochar. So they will give you a pickup load right now, but we're looking for smaller quantities and where we can set that. So we should have some more of that information in the future. The other is, I don't have a date yet for the community drop-off at the air curtain burner. So the intent with that is when we moved it down to Middletown, we'll have a community drop-off day that will be no charge. So I don't have a date for that either, but when I do hear that or on the biochar information, I'll get that to Darlene and she can distribute out to the mailing list. We should be done with burning around the Cobb School. The crews will be continuing some more work around there with all the dead and down that's still there and around the forest. Gifford Springs has seen a lot of activity up there with the crews, and we're trying to be good neighbors with defensible space around the forest so we don't end up with a fire that comes off the forest into residences. And that is it for me.
So there's a lot of information circulating about the air curtain burner. It is fully funded by PG&E.
Correct. It is a PG&E grant fund through clerk.
Yeah. So it's not the county, it's
No.
not the fire district, it's fully funded by PG&E.
Correct. Robert?
Will the word is that the helipad is moving to Crazy Creek?
No.
It's just going to be the hangar.
No, the base will be relocated to Lower Lake. So as you come out of Lower Lake, you pass the fuel depot, then there's an RV sales lot there on the left, and just past that as you kind of drop down into that little valley down there, on the left side there's a spur ridge. The state's purchased that, all 20 acres I think is out there, and that's where the new base is. So that's where bogs will be moved to. It won't be bogs anymore when it moves off the forest, but there was not room and there's not the infrastructure to put a full-time 24-hour base up here on the hill. So that was a tough decision, but the new helicopter, the Firehawk, has way more capabilities and can get up from Lower Lake in minutes, where the intent with the older Hueys was to put them as high as we could because they fly better downhill, really, frankly. So better use of it by having it up at a high point versus the Firehawk, which has way more horsepower and ability to climb. We are going to be working on putting an increased size water line into bogs. So that will be funded through a couple different sources, but we will get a 6-inch main going into there to match the new water line when that gets put in, and move the helipod up to the base. Okay. You're welcome. Any questions? Yes.
Could you give us an update on what's going on at the Harrington Flat in 175, not there with all the chips and all that? Do you know anything about that?
So Robert's question was, do I know what's going on at Highway 175 and Harrington Flat with the chips? That is an R2 production operation there, so that's all his. It's unrelated to the fire department or fire district. So he's been getting logs and shipping them up. He has been distributing the chips throughout the community. And if you are a recipient of that and you're getting those chips, make sure that they're 5 feet away from the structure. What we end up, I don't want any combustible materials next to houses, as we found in LA. That was a big cause of the house-to-house fire spread, is there were no vegetation management and houses had vegetation all the way around them. So those houses are not defensible. And when we're dropping these chips off from there, that we keep them 5 feet 8 or further away. Not a fan of chips in the yard, but that's me. Magdalena?
Yeah, thanks. I got a phone call just as we were leaving, and I was wondering if you or Jessica could say something about the meeting that is supposed to happen on site at the ACI on Monday at 10:30? Some kind of
It's an informational meeting.
Okay.
So community members are invited down there to take a look and see what's going on. They will have the air curtain burner and the carbonizer, both will be running. So they ask for jackets and hard hats, but if you don't have those, you're still invited to go. They will have a supply of those on site, and you can see the operations.
And do you know if there's any more help getting the logs off the mountain to get to the burner?
Yeah,
That's what I was asked.
Matter of fact, I'm happy to report, and I just saw an email from Wendy Collins regarding log pickup funded by clerk, and she has a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of areas that are going to be getting logs picked up, and it must be through a grant or something that they're going to be picking logs up off of lots, at least in the Cobb View area.
She sent me the list, but she was saying, if they're gonna have a show there, you still need help getting more stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a vendor, so I don't know what the process will be for getting them that, but some of that is just landowner permission to get those logs that are, it'll be a challenge. You'll need a bucket loader and not a log loader, because they're just crumbling.
Yeah, I think clerk had some funds left. I think
Okay.
that's where it's coming from. I don't know if it's a public meeting though, on Monday.
On Monday?
I don't think so.
I'll find
I
out.
think it's invitation only, but,
Just a Magdalena's meeting, so if you're not Magdalena, you can't show up.
but yeah, I think Wendy has been talking with clerk and they had a little bit of money left and so they were trying to spend it down and get the logs. Yeah.
If Jessica's not going, could you go? And I'm like, if it's invitation only, I can't be standing.
We'll be there. Paul and I will be there.
Yes, so that it went out, that invite went to 41 people for Carbonizer Partners,
Yeah.
so. So if you're part of a fire safe council, I would imagine you can go to that. And if you want to go and be my guest, then I'll show you around. It for me.
Can I arrange a field trip?
Sure.
Bring all the kids?
No.
No,
No kids.
that's what I meant.
An adult field trip.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. And Chris, it's time for your treasurer's report.
The most exciting part of the evening.
Woohoo!
So I'll make this very short. We just had 2 transactions since the last meeting. We had a $300 check that we wrote to Mountain Lions Club for our time here, and then $148 storage unit fee. So if you want details on the various accounts and how the money is sort of distributed, please feel free to pick up one of the treasurer reports. It'll also be in the minutes next month. I'll get you one.
Okay.
And on hand, we have $22,605 for operating expenses. Overall, net assets are $70,687. That's all I got. Any questions?
All right, thank you. And the moment we've all been waiting for now, the Regional Transportation Plan, the Active Transportation Plan update. John Specka? Spika, sorry, John. John Spika, the AICP Senior Transportation Planner, is here to present his multimedia presentation.
Should I, is there a microphone? Yeah, right here. Usually the one barking at me. Not in the way? Okay. Yeah, hi, I'm John Spika. I'm with the Lake Area Planning Council. I'll explain who we are in just a second. First, I want to thank the council for having me. This is a sort of every 4 years we try to update our regional plan, and getting as much input as we can is an important aspect of it. So I'm making the rounds to all the town halls and getting the word out as best I can. No, it just worked a second ago. Okay, so Lake Area Planning Council, we are the regional transportation planning agency for the Lake County region. So what that means is we work with the local agencies and jurisdictions on transportation planning, funding, trying to get all transportation projects, helping with the county, helping with the cities, helping Caltrans and the tribal entities throughout the region to kind of improve their transportation systems. Our board is made up of local representatives, so there's 2 county supervisors, including our newest supervisor. Jessica Paiska is our newest board member. 2 council members from each of the cities and 2 at-large members. We also have a couple advisory bodies. The Technical Advisory Committee is sort of the main one, in that they meet monthly, and it's made up of public works officials and community development officials, and they kind of sort of know the daily kind of nuts and bolts issues, and they advise the board on some of these items. And the second one is the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council. That's mainly transit matters, and it's primarily transit for in mobility for seniors, disabled, and low-income folks. And they meet, I think, quarterly. And then there's a couple other roles that our agency or that our council serves as, where we administer the callbacks programs for the yellow call boxes on the side of the road for emergency purposes. And then our board also sits as the board for the Lake Transit Authority. And this is not cooperating again. So the main thing we do, like I mentioned, is we plan. That's part of the planning agency part of it, but we allocate transportation funds. So we work with the Fed, we mostly work with the state. So a lot of times Fed dollars come to the state dollars come down to the regional entities, including ours. And and there's also grant programs that we try to work with the local agencies who need some assistance to try to get the funding for their projects. Now, you think transportation, it's pretty much think roads, which is probably the main, streets and roads and highways are the main portion of it. But it's also everything you could think of that gets you from point A to point B. So this is bicycle lanes, this is sidewalks, public transit, even aviation's in there. So the plan kind of covers every aspect of potential transportation movement for the region. So again, we assist the local agencies in funding their needs. We also prepare planning documents. A lot of times we'll get a grant for specific types of projects. I was here last summer actually for one of our projects was for a wildfire evacuation and preparedness plans. We got a grant for that. We typically will hire a consultant and have the plan put together through them. So, but the main one we work on is this regional transportation plan. And it's sort of our guiding document for what our agency does. It's sort of, think of it as sort of our general plans. It's a 20-year planning document that sort of shows us what we should be focusing on. This is no fun. So the regional transportation plan it's a 20-year document. So it gets updated every 4 years. The last one was adopted by our board in February of 22. And we are aiming for this one. We're going to spend most of this year working on it and preparing for a February 26th adoption. The plan promotes a safe and efficient transportation system for the movement of people and goods. And it includes, like I mentioned, all the modes you could think of for transportation for this region. So there's an element that kind of covers each of those. And like I said, the roads, there's a state highway system is a big one. Local streets and roads are also one of the primary ones. There's an non-motorized, which is, I'll explain in a second, is called our active transportation component. Public transit tribal transportation and aviation kind of rounds it out. So now the active transportation plan, it's a little confusing because it's a standalone document that it was prepared originally because the state came up with a new program about 10 years ago called the Active Transportation Program, where they funded pedestrian and bicycle type projects throughout the state. Most of that is through competitive, at least for us, it's through competitive funding. All of it's through competitive funding sources. So they have a program every 2 years where they have you could apply for grant funding for specific projects in a jurisdiction. Now we'll wait for the jurisdiction to ask us for some help, or we could kind of recommend maybe some projects that might fit. But the active transportation plan kind of has a list of all the projects that we think might be worth funding, and they have to be in this plan for them to be eligible for those funding sources. So that state, like I said, the state active transportation program started up, and we adopted our plan right around that time. Since then, we kind of like fused it with our regional transportation plan because it fits the sort of the non-motorized component of that. The plan itself will list just dozens of different projects for each of the different modes. Again, often you need to have your project listed in a plan with just some kind of really general parameters and cost if you could get them. But to be eligible for funding sources, they have to be within this plan. So the idea is to get as much information as we can from the community and the local agencies on which projects they think should be included. A lot of times, of course, there's a 20-year plan that gets updated every 4 years, and they kind of continue on over time until they're implemented at some point. But we're limited on funding, obviously, and so we're trying to prioritize which projects kind of, are more important than others that kind of should be focused on. So for instance, on the state highway system, on State Route 29, I'm sure you're all aware of that massive project. That's been in the works for a good 20, 30 years, and it's just a matter of getting the funding to complete it. We're about, I want to say, well, it was broken into 3 components. The first has been completed. The second, we're still looking for construction funding, but we did secure right-of-way funding, so that was a big deal. One of these days it will be complete. It's just a matter of getting the money. Again, so our lists of projects are determined through the feedback received from the agencies, tribal governments, and the general public. So that's you. That's where you come in, and that's why I'm here in the first place. I want to get the word out that we're doing this, and I'll show you how to provide input at the end here. But where we're at right now is we're at the outreach phase of the project. I'm doing sort of a roadshow to all the town halls and school district boards and whoever else might have an interest. Some of you might have already seen this presentation. I think Jessica's seen it several times already, but redundancy is better than no outreach. So probably later in this spring, summer, we'll have these needs kind of spelled out and put into these prioritized lists for each of the elements. Later in the year, we'll have the environmental and public review portion of the project. We'll have a draft to our board in late fall. We'll probably get comments that need to be responded to by either Caltrans or our board, and then we're going to shoot for a final adoption in February of '26. So again, we're here because we want you to participate in giving us your concerns or what problematic areas you think should be addressed. Safety issues are usually the ones that get the most attention for a good reason. But any ideas or any concerns that you may have, and here's how you could provide the input. We have a web page where you could go to, and there's surveys and an interactive mapping tool. So you could go onto the mapping tool, kind of zoom into where you're focused on, say, a certain intersection or sidewalk gap or what have you. You could drop a pin in there and put some kind of narrative on what it is that you're most interested in. We also have a survey that kind of gives us a good idea of what should be focused on throughout the plan. There's demographics and all sorts of stuff in the survey. But there's a QR code with a strange-looking dinosaur on there. I'm not sure what that's all about, but that's there. I also have some flyers that you could take home if you don't want to use this QR code, but it's also on the flyer. And so is my contact information. I have some business cards up there, or here's my address, and here's our mailing address. And if you're not really into doing the surveys and all that, you could just shoot me an email and just let me know what your concerns are or what projects you think are important. I'd be glad to include them. And I also have a limited amount of hard copies if you're just really averse to the whole computer part. So most people are kind of up to date, but not necessarily everybody. And that's sort of the long and short of it. I'd be happy to kind of go over any questions anyone might have at this point.
I have one question. You mentioned identifying and prioritizing the feedback. What things weigh into the prioritization? You mentioned safety, but I'm wondering if there are other things that weigh into, like, is the number of people requesting it, or? Well, obviously, a critical mass would kind of make it a little bit more higher up on it. They're not really kind of like a list where we say, okay, we're going to go for the number 1, number 2, number 3 projects. They're lists of projects that are deemed important enough to be included. And again, you can't normally find funding unless they're contained in this document or the active transportation portion of it for those types of projects. But everything has to come from the local agencies. So in your case, it would be the county has to come and say, look, we really want to focus on this. Can you help us get some funding? Can you help us find some grant opportunities? But it starts from there. And so, the city public works or the county public works kind of drives what needs are most important. That's helpful, because if we've got something that we want to do, we put it in the survey and then let Jessica know, or...
Right. I mean, you want to talk to your board members and you want to talk to your public works folks.
Right.
I guess Glenn's going to come next month or whatever, but you could certainly bend his ear on that too. So, yes.
How do you approach the medical needs for people? We have a lot of people, and I was one of them, that needed help with transportation to get to chemo and radiation and different things. There's a lot of people that are in need of a prone position for people to transport. Are you dealing with that again, or?
One of the elements of our plan is the public transit element. So of course that's buses, but it's also paratransit services, including those types. You might be familiar with Lake Links, is a kind of a local program that it's our area's Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, C.A.C. in our acronym world. But they actually help in certain circumstances for that very thing, for seniors, disabled, and low-income folks to get to certain appointments, doctor's appointments in the area or out of the area. There's some kind of means testing as far as some of the programs go, but for instance, there's what's called Pay Your Pal. I'm sorry, I kept thinking Meals for Wheels, but it's not. It's called a Pay Your Pal program, and it's basically have a family member or friend drive you to your appointment, and they could be compensated and paid back for the mileage. So that's just one instance of the type of.
I'm talking about somebody that needs to be taken, but they have to be in like a gurney.
Mhm.
And people like me can't do that kind of thing. And I was lucky that Kelseyville Ambulance Fire Department did it for us.
Mhm.
But that is something that has come up since the time that I needed it several times for a lot of people that I know that are going through similar stuff.
There is a dial-a-ride program as well that has those types of vehicles that could, for wheelchair accessibility and that sort of thing.
In the county.
Yeah, it's part of the Lake Transit Authority system. I think you call in advance and set up an appointment for a pickup and that sort of thing.
Okay, so they do have.
Yeah, so that would be like Lake Transit. You want to contact them. That, sure.
For out-of-county transfer too.
Yep.
For out-of-county medical appointments too.
There wasn't any when I needed it, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I called for transit, and I called a lot of people, and Rob Brown got me the connection.
Good. Yeah, we've been working on that.
And Lake Links too, they try to accommodate, how to set you up to get to a doctor appointment. If they don't have the vehicle, they'll look for ways to get you there somehow and, find the vehicles if they can.
It's come a ways in 4 years, but
Yeah, actually Lake Links is about 4 years old, so it is coming along.
it'd be nice to get a list so that we can keep it here for people
Okay.
of all the agencies that can do that kind of thing, whether it be just the medical transportation and how much it would cost them approximately,
Mhm.
or what they need in their medical, if it's something that you can build their insurance for.
Yeah, I could get you in touch with the Lake Links office. I mean, they would have.
I have an agenda.
Okay, that'd be great. That'll remind me. Yes. And you had a question.
No, if you have an issue in needing a gurney van for transport, so a van with a gurney, not necessarily an ambulance, give me a call and I will find out who we can get. Because Kelseyville Ambulance is not doing interfacility transports. No, but we do have avenues to get you to the hospital, so, or to a clinic. Yeah.
But they would even come from Santa Rosa and help us. And, it was really hard for the family.
Yeah, I know we did do a study. It's already been about 10 years, but it's for that exact purpose, and that's where the Lake Links organization was derived from that study. We focused on it. Well, here's a really critical need. What do we do about it? And then over time, we helped develop this Lake Links program. It's a nonprofit, but we work closely with them too. So, yes.
I have a question, and I don't want to be negative, so I'm going to have to, obviously you have a lot more knowledge than me, but.
Use the microphone.
Microphone. Tom,
Tom,
microphone.
you should have had him too.
The two highway, I'll call them projects, but 175 out of Middletown heading towards Cobb, and then all that out of Lower Lake heading towards Kelseyville. Just from my perspective, it seems like overkill, like way more than we needed. And certainly lost the sense of country roads like I drive in the country. And I'm not complaining, I'm just curious. It looks like there's a lot more highway there than what we need, traffic-wise.
Yeah, so in those cases, I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, I mean, we were driven by what the county public works or the city public works asks us. to help with or wants us to focus on. In those cases, it's Caltrans because they're the jurisdiction, or it's their, you know, they're the owner of the facility for the state highways. You know, we work with Caltrans, but they sort of could make their own decisions on that. We could tell them, like, here's a trouble spot, here the community is really upset about this one area, and they might start to focus on it then, but it all comes kind of through their own process in that sense, to work on the improvements on their right of way. So, sure. Question?
Hi. Margot Kambara. Sorry, I'm still not clear on the decision-making process. So you have input from, say, the survey, say from existing projects, and then it goes, I think before it goes to your technical advisory committee, doesn't it get screened or beforehand? So should community members who want to give more detail on their concerns or their suggested projects, do they talk to Public Works then? Is that your recommendation?
That would be the main starting point for sure. I mean, Public Works and your board members, you know, that's your jurisdiction. So any safety issues or whatever other transportation issues you probably want to bring to them.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure. Any more questions? Okay, well, thanks again for having me. And again, I did leave a stack of flyers. Take some home with you. Take some and post them on, you know, a bulletin board near you. Just we're trying to get the word out as much as possible. Also, some business cards if you want to shoot me an email or ask some follow-up questions. So,
Thanks, John.
thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for being here. And we're on to committee reports. We'll start with Firewise Communities.
So Magdalena reporting on Firewise Communities. I have some lighthearted news to share. So the National Fire Protection Association reached out to me as program director for the Siegler Springs Community Redevelopment Association and asked if we could distribute about $10,000 to help with creating defensible space, and I said yes. We were the only nonprofit awarded that little thing in California. I attended a meeting of the awardees on Wednesday, so all of this is very new. They told us that as long as we could show them befores and afters, pictures of people actually doing work before September, then you know, this was the demand, that this was the requirements. And so I have already notified the five Firewise communities, and then the leaders for the other two in the Cobb area. And you don't have to be in a Firewise community, but it was just easier to take advantage of this grant, but it was just easier to get the word out through them. I've let folks know that, or at least the Firewise communities know that we can provide up to $1,500. You'd have to provide receipts and all of that kind of stuff. I already have one application. Well, it's not an application, just send me a letter describing your project. And we have one community asking for a dumpster, help with a dumpster. We'll have more, I'm sure. So you can write to me at magdalenavh@sscra.org, and you would identify your project by letting me know where it's located, which means we need a street and a cross street and an address if you've got one. how much square footage you're doing on either side of a road or around a house, or the number of houses, and the estimate that you have of what money you need. And then I'll talk with you.
Magdalena, is there a deadline?
So Chris just asked if there's a deadline. We're aiming for folks to really make a big deal about May 3rd, which is National Wildfire Preparedness Day. You don't have to do your project on that day, but it would be really nice to have, especially if you're going to let me know, then I can put it all in a press release. And the NFP loves press releases. So the sooner we get, so that's, it's now March 20th today. So if you could send me whatever you have in the next 2 weeks, that would be great. And then I can start moving all of that.
Thank you, Magdalena. Okay, Darlene, on behalf of Mel.
Yes, on behalf of Mel, he is in Phoenix. Surprise. For the Communications Committee for Cobb AlertNet, to report our check-ins have been roughly around 30 still during winter time. To answer the question from last week, whether the radios are available for sale at Madeline's Mail Express in Loch Lomond. They are not. They are available for sale through Brian Cobb. No, you're Cobb 1, right?
No, I'm Boggs 1.
Boggs 1. So Cobb 1. So you can email us at cobbalertnet@gmail.com if you want to purchase any radios. Mel is looking for a new retail location to sell the radios, but nothing's written in stone yet. And again, he didn't mention it, but we do have a third repeater up and running for the Loch Lomond corridor. That's basically the Ziegler Springs way out there that can't reach where we can. And the repeaters aren't linked together. I don't know if that's something that he's planning to do or not, but they can be linked together so that Cobb can hear Ziegler Springs. But for right now, it's separate, and Ziegler Springs can hear each other better, as far as I know. So that's good. Hopefully the check-ins will be increasing come here spring and summer. And that's about it. Any questions? Okay. Onward.
Elliot, Forest Health.
Thank you. Elliot Hurwitz, Ziegler Springs Community Redevelopment Association and chair of the Cobb Area Council Forest Stewardship Committee. And just to, as Jessica pointed out, we had received one of these federal grants. We came to here last meeting, and thank you for approving some matching funds from the Cobb Area Council. At the moment, as Jessica said, the status of these grants is in limbo. We were fortunate in that we actually have a signed contract with the federal government, signed 2 days after the inauguration, so we still don't know if that actually means anything. But as I said last month, we have submitted our exploratory billing. We just sent in an invoice for a few $100s to see, the fact that we have a signed contract, see if that'll do it. And it's we're not in the millions. We're like a clerk and the RCD, has some significant funding. But we're hoping that maybe we can at least get it going. Nonetheless, we had an excellent meeting of the Forest Stewardship Committee last month, and we have committed to continuing these now. We have kicked off the CW Cobb area Community Wildfire Protection Plan, even without the federal funding. That basically was the sentiment in the room there, I gotta tell you, it felt fabulous just to feel the strength of the commitment from the community. These are all people you know, as Gary Prather and Scott Parody and, all the people who, basically walk the walk on their own lands, who have the understanding and want to bring that culture of fire adaptation to Cobb Mountain. So we're, basically committed to pressing forward. We got some significant offer of help from CAL FIRE to help us with one of the key technical challenges, which is going to be building a computer mapping system, a geographic information system. And Mike Wink has kind of, said, we're not going to let you fail with this. And they're kind of going to help us build our own. We're also, again, it's tricky, but it's not brain surgery. I think it's stuff that we're just going to have to learn how to do this and, do as much as we can ourselves, in a way, demonstrate what a community pulling together can do together. So I'm frankly still very jazzed about it. The Forest Stewardship Committee will be meeting at the Loch Lomond Fire Station the last Friday of every month at 4 o'clock. We start on time and end at 5:30, so got a good record for that. So if you want to be on that mailing list, you can email me at Elliot, Elioth, @sscra.org, and we'll put you on that. We've got an email list of about 45 people, and we get good, we don't get that many, but we get a good representation at the meetings, brainstorming. So that's what's happening with the Forest Stewardship Committee. I also want to mention that I had the opportunity to attend a full-day training session that CAL FIRE put on at their Chico Training Center, which was also basically put on in coordination with the Community Wildfire Planning Center, which is a national planning center. They're really people who are building, they're putting out all this excellent new material about how to do a CWPP, Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and training for it. This day was basically, half the room was planners, stuff like Mr. C.A.C, all the AICP folks, American Association of Certified Planners, and the other half of the room were professional firefighters. They had the top brass there from the fire marshal's office and the pre-fire planning office, and the first half of the day was firefighting basics for planners, and the second half of the day was planning technology for firefighters. And what I found particularly useful is that, particularly since we are now in the process of our general plan and area plan updates, they really focused in on how can you use those plans as well as other kind of plans like the transportation plan, like the hazard mitigation plan, all of the plans that really form the sinews and tendons of the mechanism of government. How can you get in there and build in policies that really will make it easier for us to promote all of the fire adaptation practices that we want to do. So I got a notebook full of notes that we're going to kind of mine for intelligence there as well. So in a challenging time, I feel grateful to be in this community, that has, we have such a depth and wealth of care and knowledge. So we will continue. The only thing I'll say about that is without the federal funding, I know that our funding request was for matching funds, but I'm hoping we'll still be able to use them, and I may even come back ask for some more, see if we need it. Questions? Thank you.
Thanks for sticking to it. Appreciate it. It's not on there, and should be.
Well, no, I'm going to defer to the Cobbler Festival for our...
It's on my worksheet that I made.
Oh, okay. So
I added it.
the Blackberry Cobbler Festival arm of the Economic Development Committee is having a meeting on March 25th at 6 p.m. Our Cobb Mountain Pizza. And we put a save the date out there on the Facebook page. And that was fine until about Sunday afternoon when the scammers started saying, oh, just PM me and send me your $100 and we'll sign you up. But So as much as I did put in the original post for this year, only trust communications from the Blackberry Cobbler Festival page as sponsored by Cobb Area Council and our trustee Jennifer Gata of Bottle Rock Candle Studio, that those are the only two sources you should trust. Nonetheless, somebody was taken. Well, no, we didn't catch. Sad catch.
Yeah.
Missed. But the banks are involved, et cetera. So hopefully they get their money back. And so don't trust the imposters. Only go with the original Blackberry Cobbler Festival, sponsored by Cobb Area Council.
Yep.
Yes. And things are moving along swimmingly. That's all I got on that one. Any questions? Okay.
All right, so that was the only the meeting for the economic
Just-
development,
yes,
yeah.
Yes. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
I was just gonna say, maybe we can get NCO to tie that disaster preparedness event with the Cobb Festival.
And we typically have nonprofit
Yeah.
booths available.
Yeah, we
for
do,
free.
we do. There's like a
Yeah, I don't think we charge
nonprofit
for it,
row.
yeah.
I'll reach out to them and see if they want to do something or. Okay, well. Okay, you have, go forth and make connections.
Were the AmeriCorps, the AmeriCorps kids were there, or
Yeah, the AmeriCorps.
they were there last,
Who's gonna bag up the mileage?
yeah, they helped. And did they have? Right, but it was that team, the disaster AmeriCorps.
Keeping our Cobbler Festival from becoming a disaster. Do you have a question? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please let me know if this is out of order. But you asked for a question about, or for the greater good.
Yes.
So while Elliot was giving his update, a question occurred to me after he was done, way after he was done. So here's my question. So I am thrilled that there's going to be integration with the general plan and the local area plans and the wonderful new information that Elliot has gotten and what Cobb area is working on. And if we can leverage that to other area plans, that would be fabulous. So my question is, and it might be too early, how is that information going to get integrated or shared with the other area councils? And I'm sorry, Elliot, to put you on the spot.
That's a good question, and I'll have to think about it. Again, as I said, particularly as it relates to the general plan and area plan updates, I know particularly the fire preparedness and safety is going to be something that's treated in the safety element of the general plan, which of the Community Development Department has divided all of the elements into two bins, really. There's those that are going to be treated in the area plans, and those that are going to be treated in the general plan. Safety element will be treated under the general plan itself. So, but that's not the only place where there can be, policies, but again, as I said, I haven't really even digested the kind of, the meal of material, but I'll thank you. I'll think about how to share that with the other LAPACs.
And a response, maybe, should we take it offline, or is it for,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would invite you to continue that conversation, and I'm gonna, if that's okay, if everyone's in agreement. And otherwise, I will adjourn this meeting, if everyone's okay with that, at 7:44 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.